when a franchise tries to be too big and bigger than just the film industry in itself, that's where I get super wary, and that's where franchises lose me on it.
Right.
What's up, guys, and welcome to Beside the Point here on Nerdy Blurb TV. Today, it's going to be so much fun because we're going to be talking about film franchises, our favorite ones, but definitely ones that we think are the best. So stick with us. It's going to be great.
Oh, yeah.
Presented by None of This Really Matters. This is Beside the Point here on Nerdy Blurb TV. I'm Ryan, and today we got a special guest with us. Dude, Clay.
What's up?
What's going on,
Dude,
man?
I'm pumped
It has
to
been
be here.
It has been way too long. We should have had you on forever ago. Because we've been talking about this for way too long.
Oh, man, I've loved the show forever.
Oh, well, thank you.
I am a blurbist.
Oh.
Nerdy blurbist.
Is that a thing?
It should be.
Oh, man. I'm so glad to hear that's a thing. But then second up, I'm so glad that you're here finally, because after talking about it for so long, because Clay and I go back quite some time, and who would have ever thought that he's such a huge nerd at heart? Because you look at him and you're like, oh, is that just like a David Beckham impersonator?
Please.
The dude knows his stuff when it comes to just nerd stuff in general. Quite an awesome singer-songwriter.
Well, I dabble.
You dabble. Go look him up you're on Spotify, yeah?
Yeah, there's some stuff on Spotify.
Spotify,
some old stuff.
iTunes. And check him out on YouTube too, as well, right?
Yeah, it's all old, but it's there.
It's all
for your
old.
consumption.
It's whether it's old or not, it's still freaking awesome. Go check out Clay Summers. Awesome dude. So glad to have him here with us.
Heck yeah.
Talking about film franchises. And we were just going over a few of our favorite ones. Excited to talk about this because there are way more that I really love than I thought there were going to be. So what are some of the first ones that come to your mind? And then let's talk about like what makes them great in general.
Okay, so biggest franchises right off the bat. The first one that always comes to mind for me is Lord of the Rings.
Oh, yeah.
100%. That's
Easy.
my heart. Star Wars. You gotta have, the MCU.
The MCU. Yeah, that's a big one.
That's a huge one, especially right now since Endgame just came out. Harry Potter.
Yes.
And then the new Fantastic Beasts is kind of continuing in that line. Dark Knight.
Dark Knight was
Yes.
one that escaped my mind because, of course, it needs to go down in history. But franchise is kind of stretching it. I would totally consider it Batman being his own franchise.
Yeah, I guess you could kind of loop all that together.
Because, it stands apart from all of the other Batmans that came before it. Mm-hmm. But, Batman's such a stapled name.
Yeah.
And there's... The Dark Knight trilogy in itself is kind of is kind of a standalone franchise in itself. You guys can comment down below and tell us what you think. But definitely Dark Knight is one of my all-time favorite trilogies, if not franchise.
Which we should probably talk about the DCEU as well.
True. Good point.
Gotta touch on it.
True. And I feel like it gets way more hate than it needs to. The hate is there, and I've definitely expressed my hate for it.
It's a love-hate for me, for sure.
There's
elements I love, but...
And it's really cool to be able to talk about all this kind of stuff because, like you said, the MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's not at its end. It just ended a saga, and I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of that. We all know that we will be. But I think it's really fitting to be able to talk about what makes a franchise so great and if the MCU is included in that, which of course we think it is. But why are all these ones that we've talked about, why are they considered to be so great? Sure. What makes a franchise so awesome? And in the future, do you see any of these franchises coming back or staying on their feet? Let's talk about it. So, first one that you mentioned, Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Why does that one come to your mind first?
That's the one I grew up with.
Okay.
I remember going to see The Fellowship of the Ring. I think it came out when I was 10, 2001, I think. And I knew my dad liked the books, but I had never read them before. I didn't know anything about it. Went to the theater, and it blew my mind. Just floored me. My friends and I would do nothing but like act out scenes from Lord of the Rings and like film it on our little cameras.
We have like old VHS tapes of us all dressed up. Not us, but us.
I wish it was us.
It would have been so cool. That would have been so cool. But like me, my brothers, and like neighbor kids, we all dressed up. I was the Dementor, not the Dementor, the Ring Wraiths, and they were all the hobbits, and I'd chase them around because I was the oldest and everything, and we'd film it. And my mom was so cool because she was the camera guy, and she would just be like, you have to make all the sound effects. So she was all into it. So I definitely grew up with it myself, and that's probably the only movie that I've ever seen the most times in theaters. Like no other movie comes close. Yeah. Fellowship of the Ring, I saw 8 times in the theater.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I even saw it on vacation. Like all of us went down to St. George for a vacation, and everyone's like, "Well, something fell through." And I was like, "What do you guys want to do?" And everyone's like, "Let's go swimming and everything." I was like, "I want to go see Lord of the Rings again for my 6th time, by the way." So Lord of the Rings. Definitely consider that, and I think the nostalgia helps a franchise because we grew up with it, and that only helps a franchise even more. And I feel like all the franchises that we've talked about also share that, especially Marvel Cinematic Universe. But there's so much more with Lord of the Rings, I feel like, and as a whole, in a film franchise, it's got to have a great overarching story.
Yes.
In my opinion, Lord of the Rings nails it.
Absolutely. That's the mark of a good franchise is it's going to hook you and keep you engaged the entire time and feel like there's no breaks. That's the thing about Lord of the Rings is it's one continuous story.
Oh, that's true,
that there's never a break to it, really. You know, you could watch them back to back and they flow, and it never pulls you out of that story, you know, where a lot of these other ones, they bring in different directors and different writers and stuff, and it pulls it out. When they were filming Lord of the Rings, you know, they'd be filming the final scenes of the Return of the King, and the next day film opening scenes of the Fellowship. Yes. So it was all created, written, and produced as one huge project.
And you know what? It's crazy you say that because, and I know that I'm going to be dabbling into things that go beyond the film franchise, but you said something that I think is really imperative for a franchise to have, and that is having it all be organized as such. I mean, everything was written and already read. They filmed everything in those 3-4 years, right? And Breaking Bad, the TV series, I don't know if you've seen it.
I love Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad did the same thing. Breaking Bad, they wrote everything first.
Really?
Yeah, they wrote everything. Vince Gilligan wrote everything out, knew every season that he wanted to do, and in my opinion, that's why Breaking Bad is the greatest TV series.
Oh yeah,
all time.
How many seasons of Breaking Bad are there?
There's 5. There's 5 seasons.
Okay, and I think that like usually season 4 of any show is when it starts to go downhill.
Yeah,
and
I agree with that.
as you get past that, they just start to suck. Breaking Bad was absolutely solid the whole time.
It was super consistent.
Yeah, it was so.
But it was a continuation of a story, like you said, and not every franchise or series needs to have that. It doesn't need to be a continuation of a story. It could be broken up, telling an overarching story, like the Marvel Cinematic Universe in itself. But Star Wars does that as well. I wouldn't say that Star Wars is one that they knew where they wrote everything out first. I feel like people can fight me on that and disagree with me.
I know that George Lucas, like back when they were making the original trilogy, was saying he wanted to make prequels. Like he wanted to go back and do the Darth Vader story. But it doesn't feel, if you put those movies against each other, they don't really feel consistent.
They don't. Everybody says George Lucas knew what he was doing. I admire George Lucas.
Yes.
I don't think he knew what he was doing. Not because he was incompetent. I think it was just because it just makes as a better story. It's like, yeah, I knew exactly what I was doing this whole time. I was talking about this with a bunch of guys at my work, but we were talking about, and Star Wars is quite a hot topic for me because I hate it so much. I love the originals, and we were just kind of nostalgic, like super nostalgic, talking about it and all of that stuff. And I just thought, I didn't see it in theaters. I don't know about you.
The
originals,
prequels, not the original. Of course, not the original.
Of course,
so
but I saw the remastered.
My dad maybe.
Your dad maybe, but like I saw the remastered ones.
Oh sure.
In theaters. I also have seen re-releases of the originals in theaters. Great time, but even the re-releases still had, because I found this out. A New Hope started out in the title sequence just saying Star Wars.
Yes.
A New Hope, and it didn't have Episode 4 on there.
Yep.
That only happened until after Return
That's
of the
true.
Jedi. I didn't know that. That's crazy. And then that's when I was like, George Lucas is a liar.
You didn't know what you were doing.
You had no idea, and you just wanted to make a cool story. It is a great story. It's a great time, but I think it makes for even better water cooler talk. I was like, yeah, sure, I knew exactly what I was doing. No, you didn't, and I think that says a lot, though. If you don't know if you don't know where a franchise is headed with the property and everything, I think it says a lot to about the creators and the story in itself to be such a huge staple in our culture,
right?
Which is what Star Wars is,
because it changed the game for filmmaking, and particularly in that genre.
Yes.
To tell that kind of a story in the sci-fi genre was huge, and I think that's, whether or not he actually had prequels planned when they released,
right?
That even if he had them planned, I doubt they would have let him put Episode 4 in the title sequence, just because I don't think a studio would have agreed to, let's do 6 movies out of this.
If that happened,
but dude, who knows?
If that happened, like first viewing of A New Hope, Episode 4, just put yourself in people's shoes. If that would have happened, you're sitting there in the theater watching this for the first time, you don't even know what a Star War is, and it pops up saying Episode 4. What would you have done?
What did I miss?
Right. I feel like I would have left, because I'd been like,
fair.
First off, and it's cool that you said that it changed the genre. It definitely did, because the only thing that came close to it was Star Trek.
Right.
And which, by the way, was killing it at the time. Star Trek is also one that we should definitely mention. But for the meantime, Star Wars changed the genre on itself, because it mixed. And we hear this all the time. It mixed the element of fantasy with sci-fi and gave it a hero's journey. It was amazing writing. It was super captivating, and I think it also, to stay on the topic that we're talking about, it's what makes franchises great when you see something new.
Yes. And
that's definitely what Star Wars did. And I feel like a lot of the other franchises that we're talking about also have just like changed the game as well.
Well, the MCU in particular.
Yeah.
The whole idea of a cinematic universe. There'd never been anything outside of just like a series, like a trilogy or something like that, a saga.
Right.
But to connect the way that the MCU was unheard of.
It was, the only thing that came close to it was Universal's Dark Universe, which was the monster movies like Wolfman, Frankenstein,
Oh yeah,
but it was only, it was like Abbott and Costello run into Frankenstein and the Mummy. It's like slapstick humor stuff. But then they were trying to take it serious when they brought in Creature of the Black Lagoon meets Frankenstein or whatever.
Yeah.
The first one to ever do it was the Wolfman, and it was just like, it was crossover stuff, and that, sure, the idea is great, and they did it a lot in TV too, back in the early 60s and late 60s, early 70s, where they just brought in comedy duos like the Jeffersons and All in the Family. They brought them together. Which
I didn't even know that.
Really?
Crazy. Yeah.
It's really funny, because All in the Family is about a racist who doesn't know he's a racist. So then you bring in the Jeffersons, which is a rich black family. And so it was really funny to see that, which recently Jimmy Kimmel has actually done a really cool video. Go and check it out. It's live in front of a studio audience where really famous actors actually reenact that episode.
I've seen ads for that.
Yeah, it was just last week. So anyway, it was really good. But like, we saw things like that in TV, but nothing like that in film, where continuing stories, actually the next continuing one is in a whole other movie in itself. Like when at the end of Iron Man, I had no idea what he was talking about. Like, yeah, sure, I like comic books, but when Sam Jackson comes in and says, I want to talk to you about the Avengers Initiative, cut to black, I was like, what the freak does that mean?
Yeah.
Like, what's that supposed to mean? I had to
Yeah.
look that up. I was like, oh, Avengers are kind of like the Justice League.
Yeah. Right. I knew DC way better than Marvel.
Oh, yeah.
So I didn't recognize it either.
No, and that's kind of what's even crazier. A lot of people say that Justice League came first, which of course it did, but in the general populace, everybody knows Marvel and the Avengers so much more.
Right.
And so that even makes it even crazier for them to bring in all of this stuff, all of these characters that nobody really even knew very well, like Iron Man.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, oh, that's a comic book guy? That's a Spider-Man kind of thing?
That's not just a Black Sabbath song?
Yeah. It was and that's what makes a franchise so great. It was changing everything. It changed all of our perspectives of what we know film to be now and these characters to be, and it flipped it on its head.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely what a franchise needs.
For sure.
Not every single one of them. I mean, there's still great ones out there that stick to the status quo and it's still really great. I mean, Dark Knight is one that changed the game itself. But,
Yeah.
but Harry Potter, we all kind of...
Harry Potter.
Your eyes lit up. So he's a sucker for Harry Potter.
Oh, I am.
Harry Potter didn't really change the game, but it just like opened a whole new world, which is something a franchise that could be said about Lord of the Rings too, is that it built a universe that we never got to see before. And I feel like a lot of this stuff brought in elements from source material.
Right.
What are your thoughts on Harry Potter?
Harry
I
Potter,
know you're
man.
itching to talk about it.
I don't even know where to start with Harry Potter. Harry Potter, I can go deep on Harry Potter, man. So, the books, first of all, that series gets me deep.
All-time
in my
faves.
heart, man. I love the Harry Potter series. The movies, I'm on and off with.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of the typical reaction when you love a book so much and then it's adapted.
Yeah. I can see that.
I remember really loving the first two movies. It felt like they were pretty true to the books. And then when they switched directors, I can't remember the director's name now, but they switched like filming locations. They brought in like, the I almost said the new Gandalf, the new Dumbledore, and it took I guess kind of a darker tone, which I guess the stories kind of were going that way anyway.
The third book does take a darker tone
It's true.
to
They
it.
start and the rest of them do, but the filmmaking, even like the costuming and everything, it was all different. The way that the direction.
It was very different.
It was very different, and it always kind of bugged me just a little.
It is not my favorite. In fact, I would very much say I hate that movie. A lot of people back that movie up hardcore because I think first they're Harry Potter fans, and then
I
for
feel obligated.
yeah,
Harry Potter.
no, that's so true, and it's hard to hate anything in a franchise you love so much because the books.
Yeah,
I've read Harry Potter is the most reread series of all time for me.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I used to just go, Joe. I haven't done it in a while, but just pick a Harry Potter book at random, open to a random page, and then that's what I'm reading that day.
Wow.
And just shut it. And I mean, I've read them dozens of times.
I mean, books in itself are a whole different thing, but it's kind of even when I was in the middle of reading, because the movies came out in the middle of all of its publications. In fact, the ending wasn't even done yet.
Yeah, I know, they were shooting films.
Yeah, it was, and they were like trying to talk to the author and everything, and trying to figure all of that. So that kind of tainted it for me very early on. I was like, you're starting something you don't even know what it's gonna be. So it's like,
that's fair.
How can you do this?
How can you cast it right if you
if
you don't know how?
And
the
it's not like the
characters end?
author's gonna change what she has planned just to fit the movies, or at least that's what I thought or think or hope. I don't know. Rowling is kind of weird, but like I remember thinking this is gonna be a disaster. The movies came out, I think, when the 5th book came out. The first movie, maybe even after the 4th.
Was 10 when they started coming out.
Oh my gosh, that makes us old.
That
makes me old.
I know, right?
That makes me old. But like it was just, I don't know.
I think it was the 5th book that came out that year.
I feel like I'm really skeptical when it comes to the new franchises coming in, especially since the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You can see a lot more things trying to pop up and become relevant. And I was just like, dude, you don't even know what this is going to be. And I really thought that was going to be the case for Harry Potter back in the day, because it's like, how are you going to make a movie about something you don't even know how it's going to end yet? But I think as a whole, it did pretty well for itself. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's among the highest grossing films, but I think it did pretty well for itself.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think they kind of locked into a vein and a style eventually with the 3rd and 4th movies, and they did well with what it was. It just didn't seem, a lot of the action, a lot of the way magic was used didn't seem consistent with the way it had been written in the book. It's just kind of, wave your wand and then it's going to blast someone off their feet. It's all the same. So it doesn't matter what you do.
So I think here's an element here that we can definitely touch on, is that a lot of these franchises that we have talked about so far, if not all of them, except for maybe Star Wars, do they need to stay true to the source material that they're coming from? For you, like, did it ruin a lot of the stuff for you in Harry Potter when you didn't see it on screen, or they changed it on screen?
It didn't ruin it for me. I still enjoy the movies and own all of them.
Yeah.
But I don't love them the way I love the book. And I think it's interesting because I love Lord of the Rings in an opposite way.
Yeah, see, that's why I wanted to talk about that.
And I've read the books recently,
right,
for like the first time, gone through them, and so it's interesting to go into it and be like, oh my gosh, there's so much that's missing from those movies that I love so much, but I still love the movies.
Yeah, and I have not read Lord of the Rings because I tried when the movies were coming out, and I was like, I need to read this before the second one comes out, which means I have to read the first one first, and then it was just like, and I was young.
Tolkien's hard to read when you're a kid.
Oh my
I tried
gosh.
too, and at that age, and it didn't
tough.
work.
And my wife is awesome. She's super smart. There's a reason why I married her. There's questioning in her sanity for marrying me. But she had read the book several times before the movies even came out, and so she had a problem with the movies, especially the Return of the King.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. She had a huge problem with that. Her favorite... One of the biggest reasons why I married my wife is because her all-time favorite movie is The Two Towers.
All right.
Who chooses Two Towers over Return of the King? So she fascinated me from the beginning. But, like, she had a big thing about, like, she loves the books.
Yeah.
Like, you love Harry Potter.
Yeah.
But they changed so much of it in the film. Mm-hmm. Like, crazy amounts.
Yeah,
and she didn't like that. And they changed crazy amounts in Harry Potter as well.
Yeah.
But it didn't change too much for me when it comes to Lord of the Rings, now that I've actually read a few of the books. So it's kind of interesting to see the correlation there.
See, it was interesting thinking about this question. What are the best film franchises of all time? I'll have to say this. It's hard to say. I can tell you what my favorites are. I don't know if they're going to be the best. I don't know if you'll agree with me, if they're the best or not, but just let me know what you think. So my first, I would have to say that one that immediately comes to the forefront of mind is Lord of the Rings. The entire series. I mean, good grief, Lord of the Rings. I'm talking about the original Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring, the Two Towers, and the Return of the King. The Hobbit, I liked. Well, I guess this is part of the reason why this is an important question. I believe Lord of the Rings is one of, if not the greatest film franchise in history. Because the one thing that franchises have to stand is the test of time. And Lord of the Rings has stood the test of time as far as greatness goes. You'd be hard pressed to find a better adaptation from book to movie that was so well received, so beautifully done and crafted. It was like a piece of art. It was like art. It was like watching art. Probably one of the most quotable films ever, and set of films. I apologize. Don't get on my back for that. Set of films ever. And like I said, I like The Hobbit. Hobbit was great, but it just didn't. To me, it didn't stand the test of time and have just a widespread shock and awe that the original Lord of the Rings trilogy still does to me. It's weird, like, you almost have to feel worthy to watch them, like, because they're just so good. And every time I watch them, I sit back and I think, why don't I watch this more? Not that I'd ever get sick of it, I have to give myself time to breathe and think, because I want to talk about it with everybody after I watch it. So for sure, Lord of the Rings. The second film franchise, for me, that's just incredible, would have to be Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight series. That, to me, was cinematic art as well, but it was just such a bold statement, especially The Dark Knight. I put The Dark Knight first, then The Dark Knight, or then Batman Begins, and The Dark Knight Rises are the same for me. But The Dark Knight for sure, because it transcended what we thought a superhero movie could be. And there's been other superhero movies that have done that. But for sure, The Dark Knight series. And the way Batman was in the movie, but it was almost like Batman was supporting, like, the piece of art that the movie was, if that makes sense. Like, he was a supporting character, and so was the Joker too. This idea, this political drama, crime thriller, that was The Dark Knight. But that, like I said, it transcended what people would think a superhero movie could be. I'm a huge DC fan, so that probably helped a lot for me too. If you're part of those rare few people, that didn't like the Batman Begins, Dark Knight, and Dark Knight Rises trilogy there, are you all right? And I think the last thing I'll say is this. I'm sure many of you probably thought about this too, is like, why haven't I mentioned Marvel yet? Or the Marvel Studios movies. Big ups to Kevin Feige. Holy cow, he's created a juggernaut of a monster. The reason why I haven't said that Marvel is the best film franchise ever, not just because I'm a DC fan, a massive DC fan, by the way. I'm not doing any of that, Marvel versus DC, things like that. But the reason why I say that is because it's not over. That's the mind-blowingly incredible part of Marvel and the genius in what they've done. They created one phase, which Avengers Endgame ended. That whole Infinity Saga is what they're calling it. And they're not done. They still have years of movies to make. And I can't imagine the box set of when Marvel Studios actually officially puts their stamp on it and decides, no more. I can't imagine what that final movie will be, if they're ever going to stop. But when it's all said and done, Kevin Feige has passed on, I hope that doesn't happen for a while. I think we're going to be amazed at what is going to happen with the Marvel Studios franchise and what could happen. I'm super psyched for it. Obviously, I'm also pulling for DC. I think they're on the uprise right now. I loved all the DC movies so far. I know there's been a few that not a lot of people have liked, but I'm really excited to see where they go. But that, for me, is the greatest and best film franchise. I love them all and love to chat with you. Let me know what you think. If you agree with mine, or if not, no worries.
Thank you so much. Well said. Really cool. And not to mention, any of you out there watching this or listening to it on our podcast, you can submit anything in as well as a response or just to be a part of the conversation. We love that stuff. We love being able to build a community here. Thank you guys so much. But that's beside the point. Let's hop back into it. So tell me what your thoughts are when it comes to, because we covered all the facts and assets of what makes a franchise great. Where can film franchises fail? Because there have been a few that have, and some of them haven't even left the ground, and they're already failing at this point. What are some that already exist? Yeah. First off, let's talk about some that are already out there. Okay. What are some that come to your mind that just did not work?
Yeah,
or are not working still?
So the one that's breaking my heart right now is the DCEU.
Ouch.
Because I wanted it so bad.
Right.
I love DC. And Justice League just...
Yeah.
It still hurts.
That's among the movies we don't talk about. That, Indiana Jones 4.
I never watched it.
Okay, good for you. There's still hope for you, definitely. No, DCU definitely comes to my mind. And I know a lot of people do not agree with me on this. But Star Wars, dude.
Yeah, oh no.
It is just so dead to me. And it's been dead to me for some time. Because like earlier you said that like some people just like to accept the third Harry Potter movie because like, well, you got to accept all of them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's just and all the franchises have them. Like freaking Incredible Hulk is one for the MCU.
Yeah.
If we have to pick out ones that suck. In fact, I actually think that one's not that bad. I enjoy that one, but it's definitely on the bottom of the list. When it comes to Star Wars, there is way more bad than there is good for me. And that's just because they got greedy. And I think that's the problem.
Do you take any issue with the original trilogy?
No, not at all. Not at all. In fact,
Because that's like gold to me.
it is not only is it gold, but I think it's like nerd scripture.
Oh yes.
Because of
that.
because of all the reasons that we have already talked about, it's changed the game.
Right.
It not only did it change the game in its own genre, but for film in general.
Yeah.
And I think what killed it for me was the culture in itself. When something is just so like available to everyone, and like you see Darth Vader underwear, you know, someone who should be taken serious, like you don't see any Sauron underwear.
That's true.
You don't.
That's true.
And I don't get why that's the thing, but like I think that's what killed it for me is a lot of the culture. It's a great thing to have it be a part of the culture, but it also in turn it's a double-edged sword for me because it's just like it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And because it's everywhere, whether or not I did this or the culture did this, it raised my expectations way too high, and when they didn't meet them, it just killed it for me. So a lot of people can say that that's my problem, but the thing is that Star Wars is just going in a weird direction now that I didn't want to admit that they were going in the prequels, which the prequels in itself, they changed the game when it comes to CGI and all of that.
True.
But you definitely do have to have. You can't just. I don't know. Just I didn't like it.
So here's my thing. The original trilogy is just golden
Right.
material. I love it. The prequels are an interesting beast because I grew up with them. Right. I think it was 2001 when Phantom Menace came out, and I loved that movie.
I feel like it was 99 actually.
Oh, was it that far back?
I don't know, dude.
Maybe I was 8. Wow.
Oh my gosh, it was so long.
It was 99. You're right.
It
totally
to have
was. And I went and saw that in theaters for my birthday, and I loved that movie.
Right. It was a fun time. I loved it too.
It was fantastic. And a lot of people, like, now that Star Wars is coming back, and people are talking a lot about Star Wars again. A lot of people talk about how they hated Phantom Menace and
how it's the worst one.
Yeah. Don't agree at all.
I don't either.
I still love Phantom Menace.
I do too.
And growing up, I liked Attack of the Clones, and I liked Revenge of the Sith. Going back and watching them now, Attack of the Clones is so
not
bad.
Good. It is not.
The dialogue is so
pretty bad.
Laughable that it's embarrassing.
They brought an element of romance that did not need to be in there.
It didn't belong.
It didn't work, and I can appreciate why they were trying to do it. Because it hadn't been done. Like, there is romance in the originals, but it's a different kind of romance.
Very much so.
It's especially for its time, it was very, very different. Back in the day, during those movies, and during that generation, it was very much in your face. Like, they fell in love, and they fight the bad guy. They live happily ever after.
Yeah.
No, in Star Wars, it's like, dude, they love me. It's a very much will they, won't they kind of thing with two different people, and then you find out one of them is a twin to the other. It's just freaking crazy weird, but it worked really well. With this, it felt forced.
So overplayed.
And overplayed.
Oh
That's a very
gosh.
good point. But, like, it just didn't work, and so maybe the reason why some franchises can fail at times is that they try to push the envelope too much. And with the prequels, that's where it starts getting love-hate relationship with me, because there's the nostalgia there, which helps it, because Phantom Menace was great because of this nostalgia that I have for it. as a film in itself, it really isn't great.
No.
There's a difference. There's a difference between a great time and a great film.
Yeah.
And I don't think it had the film aspect of it. And everybody comes down on Jar Jar Binks, but like 8-year-old me was
I love Jar Jar Binks.
I was all over that.
My brother was Jar Jar Binks for Halloween. We have a big mask and everything. I love Jar Jar Binks.
And I think they did that to bring in other generations, which is another thing franchises do a lot that I feel like falls flat on their face. The new, well, it's still a part of the Skywalker saga, but the new Star Wars films do that a lot. That I think they're doing a lot of things to bring in the new generation or the new millennial kind of thing. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing, but like that's another reason. The biggest reason why I just don't like Star Wars now is because I was teetering on the prequels, and I was like, there's something really awesome that we can see after the Skywalker saga, and I was really hoping to see everybody be cool, like, hey, there's no more Empire, and I wanted to be more of like how the Empire rises back into power, and we saw none of that.
No, it was just the First Order was just there,
and they're even more powerful than the friggin' Empire. That's when from the very first like paragraph of the opening scene, I was like, this is gonna suck now. Because it's like you've missed a huge opportunity. But then you have all the diehard fans saying, well, that's your problem. You didn't read all the books or play all the video games or
no, not any of them.
See, but that's the thing though, is that's where Star Wars lost me. Mm-hmm. You have to watch this, you have to read this, and then you have to play that to understand where they're going with all of this stuff. And it's just too much. When a franchise tries to be too big and bigger than just the film industry in itself, that's where I get super wary, and that's where franchises lose me on it.
Right.
And I feel like Star Wars is the epitome of that. That's like Star Wars. People should look at Star Wars and say, this is how you can fail. Do not do these things.
Yeah.
I feel like nostalgia is the only reason why people are still going to these things. Yeah. I am excited for the new TV series that they're coming out with.
Mandalorian?
Though. Yeah.
It looks really good.
It looks great.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on like the Solo and the Rogue One movie that came out?
I really enjoyed Rogue One. I thought that was solid film, just through and through. I liked that they didn't rely so heavily on nostalgia for that one.
Yes.
At the end, they did bring in Vader a little bit, and then, they had,
that was the best part of the movie.
He was amazing.
It was awesome.
That end scene where he's cutting him up.
Oh my gosh.
That killed me. And Princess Leia and Tarkin and everything. So it was good. I really liked it, but it stood on its own without relying on nostalgia.
Yeah. But where did Solo lose you then?
I don't know what it was with Solo. If it was just the fact that it wasn't Harrison Ford, so I couldn't quite believe that character. I don't know what it was. I liked it. Like, it's fun.
Yeah.
But it's just fun.
I don't know how else to explain it other than the fact of that it's just like... It's so many people say it was a movie that nobody asked for, and I think that's the stupidest reasoning ever.
I did want to see it. Like, I like the idea.
Who's gonna say no to more Han Solo? Right. But the thing is, you're playing with something that is so huge. Mm-hmm. It's an iconic character. Once you make this, there's no going back.
And
on
that's
it.
the difference between Rogue One and Solo. Is Rogue One was based on characters that didn't exist previously, that we didn't know about. Han Solo is an established character, and so you're trying to go back and explain his past that wasn't written, but we already know where he's supposed to go. And so to try to make people happy with how he got his name Solo and everything, it's not gonna happen.
I think it's fan service meets fans' expectations, and there's like a disconnect between them. Because of course, on paper, this movie should have worked really, really well. Yeah. Even me as a fan, it should have worked. But the funny thing is, and maybe I'm the only one on this, Rogue One was the movie I've always ever wanted. I've only ever wanted that. I wanted to have something in between the prequels and the and whatever's happening now.
Yeah.
I wanted to see the
prequels and the originals.
Yes, and the originals. And then not only that, but have something to tie it into whatever's going on now. I've always wanted to know how the Botham spies got the plans, and they tied
Yeah.
everything in so well. Is it the greatest movie ever? No, but it did what it needed to because it filled in gaps. Solo didn't do that.
Right.
Solo just was like, here's a fun idea, and there's nothing wrong with that. But like for a franchise to be like, look at this entire world that we built, and we're still gonna go in this like small minuscule part of it rather than explore more of the universe. I feel like Solo didn't do that, and I feel like that's where I feel like franchises rely way more on nostalgia
Yeah.
than taking more risk.
Right.
But the thing is if you take too much risk, you could fail as well, which is definitely what.
I think that's what happened with The Last Jedi.
Yeah, that's definitely
Terrible risks taken. That movie just kills me. I went and saw it in theaters, and it was like a mental game. I like convinced myself. I was like, no, I liked that. I liked it. I liked it. I went and told my family I liked it, and I made my family go with me. We saw it again in theaters, and I was like, I liked it. And I bought it, and then I've watched it at home. I was like, this sucks. It's so bad.
Do you remember Mark Wallen?
Yeah.
Mark Wallen and I, we've gotten into it every now and then. I know you're listening or watching right now, and I love you, brother. I do.
Wallen?
But the thing is about something like Last Jedi, if anybody walks out of a movie theater and they say, I have to watch it one more time to know if I like it or not, and that's the debate that Mark and I got into, I feel like that's where you've already failed. Because and that's how I felt like in Force Awakens. I wanted to like it because of how much I love Star Wars, but then I thought, I didn't really love the prequels. Maybe this is a dead franchise, and I'm just trying to keep a hold of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're going to see with most of the franchises that we're talking about that are failing, because a lot of the fans with DC are trying to hold on to anything that they possibly can, and they'll give them money. They will give DC the money to go and see crappy movies just to try and keep this franchise alive. But when it comes to Star Wars, it's so powerful when it comes to money and just like culture and everything, that they can do anything they freaking want and it will still work out for them.
Right.
That's when I was just like, I'm just done. I'm just done with Star Wars because there's no stopping it, and I'm just only gonna hate it more, or I'm gonna have to pretend that some don't exist. Which is what I've done.
I did like The Force Awakens, ignoring the fact that it was a New Hope ripoff.
It really was.
It was pure nostalgia, which I liked the nostalgia of it, but it was there's still too many issues with it. But it doesn't eat at me the way The Last Jedi did.
Yeah, The Last Jedi, I can see. First off, it is the most beautiful shot movie I've ever seen.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
It's the most
Yeah.
in the sci-fi genre, if not film in general, it is the most beautiful movie I've ever seen, shot-wise. But and I don't even have problems with the political views and aspects. Like other people may have those.
that. It's the story arcs that
the
character arcs
make
that are
sense.
so bad.
It doesn't make sense. And for a franchise as huge as Star Wars. And I am very much against having super high expectations about things. Mm-hmm. It's just that how can you not have high expectations of this? But the thing is, they didn't even meet my halfway expectations. Sorry, this is just now turned into a huge bout on Last Jedi, which is of course something that we hear about all the time.
Yeah.
It's just that these are outlines for franchises to fail on themselves, and it's because they take risks, or they don't take enough risks, or what I think is the middle ground. They rely way too much on nostalgia.
Yeah.
Because I actually felt like Last Jedi was almost it felt so much like Empire Strikes Back to me, because he had to go and train with a Jedi that's better than him, and that Jedi had to tell him to do this, that, and the other. And
except she never trained.
She never did train.
It was like they tried it.
They tried just because everybody complained that she knows how to do everything.
Yeah.
Let's throw her in there, but let's make her better than Luke. Anyway,
let's give her a really bad teacher.
I've got issues with that, but wrangling it back in. Let's talk about DC.
Okay, yeah.
There's a great segue. the DCEU. I don't know what to call this thing anymore, but I feel like another way for people to mess up really bad when it comes to franchises is just not taking care of their characters and fast tracking so
Yes.
quickly.
Yes.
And that's the first thing that everybody says about the DCUs. They just tried to do so
They
much.
wanted to jump right to where Avengers got to, but
Right.
it took them years to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't willing to take the time. They did Man of Steel and then immediately introduced characters.
Right. Well, the next thing that came after that was
Batman versus Superman.
Batman versus Superman, and Wonder Woman is in it.
Yeah, they dropped her in kind of as a side character and then teased the rest of the Justice League and then just dumped everyone else in Justice League, and it didn't work.
No, and it's just like they introduced. So Suicide Squad came before.
Oh, that's right, Suicide Squad.
That's right, but I always forget
came
about that one
before,
because
Justice
everybody
League.
feels like that one's not connected, but
It kind of feels like it's not, but
it kind of feels like it's not. But they tried
it
to
is.
because the Flash is in that one.
and so is Batman.
And that's right, and Batman. See, the thing is, that's the thing, is that it's so forgettable. It's so forgettable, especially the Flashes. I say this a lot. I mention this a lot, but the Flash, when he showed up in Suicide Squad in the theaters, nobody reacted to it. In fact, so many people was like, "Is that supposed to be the Flash?" Because that's the first time.
Whoa.
That's the first time, and
No
I
one
always
cared.
say this. And one of the lower MCU movies in the ranking for so many people is Thor: The Dark World, the second one.
Oh, yeah.
But that I still like that movie. It's still great. It's definitely better than any of the other DCU movies that have come out after Shazam, because that movie was awesome.
Yeah, Shazam.
Yes.
I did like Shazam.
But when Loki turned into Captain America in that
yeah.
movie, everyone lost their mind. And so when you use that, when you compare that to the Flash showing up in Suicide Squad and people confused, apart from an even shorter scene of Captain America in Thor: The Dark World where everyone lost their mind, that has to tell you that characters are probably one of the most, if not the most important thing to a
Absolutely.
franchise, and that DC failed at.
Because there was no reason for Flash to be there. He hadn't been introduced.
No.
He hadn't been given a story arc yet. And suddenly he was there,
Well, the only thing that we've
like
seen
saving the day or something.
of Flash is the TV series, really. Well, I mean, there's a few movies or whatever back in the day and cartoons and stuff, but like everybody really wanted the TV series Flash to be the film Flash.
Yeah.
Which was never
They're
gonna
never
happen.
going to cross over that.
They were never going to do that. But like for them to introduce him that way, for us, like for the fans to demand somebody else, but then introduce this other person they didn't even know or care about the way they did, and for the Flash as an iconic character in itself, that just says so much that you're not taking the time to care about the people we care about.
Yeah.
And so that I think is another way that franchises can fail super hard is if they're just trying to check the boxes. I mean, there's another character we haven't even talked about, is Cyborg.
Oh, then they cut his, because there was supposed to be more backstory to him in Justice League.
There was?
They filmed it. It's in the trailer, like him walking around in his Letterman jacket playing football.
Oh, yeah.
They cut it all out
That's
of the
right.
final film, and I don't know if that was Joss Whedon or what when they edited it, but
I feel like there's so many things that we could talk about when it comes to that movie, Star Wars, and all of that. But like, I'm gonna talk about something that isn't really necessarily considered to be a franchise.
Okay.
But I think I think that if people look at this in a franchise, I would be interested to know your thoughts on it.
Okay.
But all of these Disney remakes that are coming out.
oh, like the live action remakes.
Yeah, live action remakes,
Yes.
Aladdin, Maleficent, and Dumbo, and all of those ones.
Yeah, they did Cinderella, Jungle Book.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like there's franchises can fall flat for me if they don't build off of what's already existing,
Yeah.
and it just feels like the same old. With the Disney live action remake stuff, it's just the same stuff we've seen.
They're rehashing the exact same
exact
stories,
same
same
stuff.
scenes, same lines.
Not yeah.
Like-
Lion King, not excited for it because I've already seen it. I've already seen it, but like Maleficent is building off of Sleeping Beauty.
Yes.
It's taking a different perspective, and I think
And
that
I liked that movie.
I liked it too. I don't know why everybody's freaking out and saying it's a stupid movie.
No,
I
I saw it in theaters. I really liked it because it wasn't the same story.
yeah, It was unpredictable.
Yeah.
And I feel like
Different perspective.
even though it doesn't compare very well to like Beauty and the Beast and probably Lion King, that will probably do really, really well, and it's only going to tell Disney that we want these more and more, except for if it sucks. If it sucks, then great. Like, I definitely don't want it to suck, but that's beside the point here. That's the name of the show. Hey! Having said all of that, with franchises just going through the motions, not building off of something, is another thing that I feel like that DC and Star Wars has not been doing, and that is just like keeping it super predictable.
Yes.
Like, of course Rey is gonna be the next Jedi, and of course friggin' Wonder Woman's coming to save them at the end of the day. We saw her in the trailer.
Yeah.
And for her to not be in this, it just
There's
doesn't
no
make
twists
sense
anymore. There's no like Darth Vader reveals, you know?
No, and that was pretty sick, because like we didn't know that was gonna happen.
No one knew.
No one knew. And there's good and bads to all of that kind of stuff, but when it comes down to choosing like the overarching question in my mind is, now that we've talked about all of this, which franchise would you consider to be the best?
Okay.
That's a loaded question.
Yeah.
It
is, and it's gonna draw some hate probably. And I don't. Well, I do know. In my opinion, would you want to do like a top 3 or just what's the greatest and why?
I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna say some of the one. Let's do a top 3, but I'm gonna say one that comes to my mind first that we haven't talked about, and I know I'm on the outs.
Okay.
I'm on the outs with it, but Star Trek I think should really be considered. Okay. Because first off, yes, there are a lot more bads than goods, in comparison to everything else. But that's only because this franchise has been going on since the 60s.
It's so old.
It's so old. Of course you're gonna strike out a few times. Of course you are. But the same thing can be said with Star Wars. But like we're talking about TV series crossing over into films, then crossing back into TV, then one more time into film, and I'm kid you not, back into TV one more time, because we have Star Trek Discovery. Now we have Star Trek Picard, which just barely came out, and it's just a franchise. If you want to talk about a franchise that can do things that are unheard of, risky, and still be successful, Star Trek should be at the top of your list. The only thing is that it's only overshadowed by Star Wars because of how much success it's had, and it's become a joke to people because it's Star Wars versus Star Trek, which it should never be.
No.
But I think it should be considered. In my opinion, is it the greatest franchise of all time? No. But that is definitely an honorable mention that I think we should definitely consider, because it's done things that nothing else has ever done before, and I've talked about this a few times on the channel before, but it broke barriers that nobody else was even considering. Not even considering. It didn't even touch things. Religious boundaries, race boundaries, sexist boundaries, and so on and so forth. It was ridiculous. And you compare that to the things that are going on right now, and it still does it better than anybody else. Has it gone downhill since then in the political realm? Yes. But that doesn't change the fact that it started it off. Not only that, but it's still continuing to do so. It's still killing it. I just had to get that out of my system. Yeah,
I'm surprised we didn't get to Star Trek.
I know.
Earlier.
I know. I feel like it was just like right there. I talked about negatives more than I talked about positive because Star Wars is just such a hot mess to me.
Yeah.
But like Star Trek, honorable mention. Should it be considered to be the best of all time? No. I'm just gonna go out on a limb here, and I'm gonna say, like, compared to Star Wars and the MCU that just recently has just been killing it too, I still hold Lord of the Rings up more than any of them.
That's where I would fall.
Really?
100%.
Yes.
As far as film franchises, it's the only one. I feel like I've gotten to a point where if I'm gonna go see a movie, I'm prepared to like most of it. and be disappointed in some. Like, it's rare that
That's
I
a
go
good
to a
point.
movie now where I'm just all in and just blown away entirely. Lord of the Rings is probably the only franchise that has done that for me through the
All the way
entire
through.
series. Yeah, beginning to end.
So here's the real question though, because it's funny that we choose this one, and this is the one that we've talked about the least. But it was the first one that come to our mind at the very beginning of this episode. We talked about it. Of course, it was right there. Lord of the Rings has to be considered. But why? Why is it? Why is that the case? I mean, so when you compare it to Marvel and you compare it to Star Wars, those two are so much grander. Even if you're considering 1, 2, 3 Lord of the Rings and then 1, 2, 3 Hobbits,
Which is a different discussion, and I'm not including them.
okay,
When I
you're not
say
including
best
that.
franchise, I'm not including the Hobbit
Whoa!
trilogy.
Wow, dang! I am considering that.
I take serious issue with the Hobbit trilogies.
That will have to be another time, folks. That will have to be another time. And that's something we haven't really discussed a lot on this channel. Lord of the Rings really should be discussed a lot more, and it's hard for me to do it because I just hold it to
Yes.
such a high of a standard.
Yeah.
But it's so funny to me that when I left Endgame, came home with the wife, I was like, that was awesome. What a great send-off to whatever all of that was, and an entrance to whatever else is coming next. And the question was just right there. And I was like, well, what's better, Lord of the Rings or Marvel? And my wife took a few minutes. And she's like, I think Marvel's better. And I was like, oh, we're not going to get any sleep tonight because
Wow.
I disagree with you. But the thing is that you look at the MCU, you look at Lord of the Rings, the MCU's resume is so much more impressive,
Yeah.
film-wise.
Yeah.
So why do you choose Lord of the Rings?
Man, I think there's just so much heart there,
Oh.
you know? And again, I mean, part of it is the fact that it was a big part of my childhood. And so when I was young and I used to like write stories and, you know, do all that, it all came from that genre. I loved it so much. So I think that's part of it, but also it built a world that, you know, Marvel is, at the end of the day, is still it's a comic book world. It's superheroes and everything, but it's still based in our world, where Lord of the Rings built this entirely new world,
Just different world building like crazy.
Felt familiar in a way because it was kind of based in Earth, right? Middle Earth. You know, so it wasn't like a sci-fi thing like out in space, but they made it feel ancient, like it had a real history, like it was
Yes.
a real place,
Yes.
and the characters were real. So it immersed me more than any of the other franchise I've watched.
So I would say Lord of the Rings. I mean, I've been interested in film for so long.
Sure.
I mean, there's a reason why I do YouTube, and my job is the job that I have now. I enjoy film. I enjoy the process of it all. Lord of the Rings was really the first movie that I was just like, I need to learn everything about this. I need to know how they made it,
Yeah.
why they did it, how they did these things, because no CGI with the whole hobbits being shorter than
It's amazing.
It's
I used to have a book
ridiculous.
that described how they did that.
gosh.
And then I'd watch all the behind the scenes stuff, like the extras on the DVDs.
yeah.
Always.
I mean, talk about reasons why they took huge risks that you never see.
Right.
Like, you can't look at that and you're just like, wow, that was a huge risk for them to do it. You watch that and you're like, wow, this is real. Like, I remember thinking that Elijah Wood was really, really short. He's actually really not. He's not. Neither are the rest of the hobbits. They're all pretty, like, not tall. I would say Sean Astin, Samwise Gamgee, is
He's the
actually
shortest,
he
isn't
is the shortest
Yeah.
out of all of them. I've actually met him in
Oh,
person.
cool.
I was like, oh, you really are short. But like Elijah Wood, not short. Donna
Yeah.
Monaghan, not that short. I mean, like, average.
yeah.
But like, I was thinking like my height, like I'm 5'6", and I was like, me and Elijah Wood, we can like totally not strain ourselves for a high five. No, that's so not true. But like, the movie magic in Lord of the Rings is is one that I don't think is on everybody at the tip of everybody's tongue, and that's because it's just so hidden so well.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at Andy Serkis as Gollum.
Yeah.
Brand new CGI, brand new like everything with that movie. I mean, the program that they used to have like tons of different like animated characters as an army was groundbreaking, and it is the same software that has now given us what we had in Endgame.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. That is one reason why I love it. But like, I think you nailed it when you said it just has so much heart.
Yeah.
Because it does. It's pretty awesome. I mean, I feel like you were gonna say some more.
I have constant thoughts always.
This show is not big enough for the two of our thoughts on this, tangents.
I guess. But no, 100%. Lord of the Rings really. I think it's a very personal thing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I don't want to dive off into the Hobbit right now. But
We won't.
I think that's what was lost in the Hobbit.
We'll come back to that.
Let's do another video.
Episode continue in another episode for sure. I just find it really interesting because some people might say. I mean, I watched Fellowship of the Ring not too long ago.
Mm-hmm.
I remember looking at it and I was like, oh, this is actually, it holds up really, really well. But you look at it and you're like, this is actually a little dated.
Yeah,
with some of the things that they did.
It's interesting to watch.
It's very interesting to see how far we've come, because how long has it been now? Did you say 2002, 2001? It's been a minute. It's been a hot minute.
Yeah.
Since those movies. And so watching them has been, especially, okay, this is going to be a short moment that we talk about The Hobbit. And I think that's what killed it for me on The Hobbit, is that they overuse CGI. I know you're itching, dude. But it's just that it's the old Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring, so on and so forth. It's a little dated in regards to some of the other franchises we are seeing.
Yeah.
But like, I didn't care at all about that. I was like, oh, they slowed the film down for this, or that's totally CGI.
Yeah, they're in front of a green screen right there.
Yeah,
You can
like
kind of see the outline. You know?
Whatever. It's definitely hidden enough for me to be caught up in the world that they built, like you were saying.
Absolutely.
And with that mixed with so much heart that it has, not to mention life lessons. I mean, Lord of the Rings raised me. Mm-hmm. I mean, my parents did a great job, but Lord of the Rings filled in the gaps, I would imagine. But it's just it's very, very personal. I like how you said that.
100%.
100%.
100%.
So, any other thoughts? I mean, I was actually thinking that you were gonna choose something different, but that's stupid of me.
What did you think
I
was gonna choose?
I don't know, because you're so like I know you're such a diehard Harry Potter fan.
Yeah, I am.
But I knew
the movies just irk me a little.
No one can choose that over what we brought to the table here today. We've talked about Star Wars, we talked about Harry Potter, but we definitely talked about Lord of the Rings and the MCU. We talked about some duds here and there. We're talking about the DCEU, which is probably the biggest dud of the lineup.
Unfortunately.
We talked about some more Star Wars sucking it up. But I mean, all in all, the coolest thing about being involved with these fandoms is that they're so much bigger than us, no matter how much they suck or do well. But it's such a personal thing to see something so big that you care about in front of you. And that's why we go to the movies, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And that's why we talk about this stuff for an hour or more. And we're going to talk about some more too, because apparently we got some beef with The Hobbit. And
we do, but that's beside the point.
Oh, he dropped it again. So just having said all of this, what do you guys think? Tell us down below. What are some franchises you think that have been overlooked that we talked about? What are some that you definitely think should be mentioned? And what are your favorites? We love hearing from you guys. This is the whole reason why we do this stuff. If you ever want to submit a video into us to be a part of the conversation, go ahead and do so. Our contact information is down below. Dude, Clay, thank you so much. It's
pleasure.
It's kind of weird to call you that, Clay.
Yeah.
But we're gonna stick with that. Go and check out Clay Summers on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, and just like on his on your Instagram. You're doing some pretty cool stuff there,
Oh
dude.
yeah, there's some Instagram stuff.
He's got some
Starting
Instagram
to
stuff.
Take some photos and film some stuff.
Yes, and he's killing it
Hopefully
too.
there'll be some YouTube stuff soon.
Please do, because you just Google Drive me all the time, and
I know,
why
I
is this
know.
not on YouTube? And it's great stuff too, and I think you should definitely consider doing that, like posting more stuff on there. So this is me officially calling him out. We are now holding him accountable. Thank you guys so much for tuning in here today on Beside the Point, and until next time, we'll see you again.
Stay nerdy.
Oh yes, bro. Yes, that was fun.
That was fun.
We are the music makers, and we are the dreamers of dreams.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in here today at Nerdy Blurb TV and checking out this video. Consider subscribing if you're into this kind of stuff, because we like to keep it nerdy here and interact with cool individuals such as yourself. Have a great day.